Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to week 5 of the SAi program. Time flies. We are just passing through, and hope you guys are getting a lot out of this, and you're being challenged. Okay, being challenged with your assumptions, challenged with your designs, challenged with all the elements. Okay, I think that's the key thing is we need to do this now, or else when you get out there, it's just gonna be harder. Okay, and we've just to recap where we've gone. Okay, we've started at the problem solution side of things, and that will continue. Okay, you guys are going to continue to do that. And then we went into evaluation, spend a long time there in evaluation, and you guys are seeing how critical it is, right? And it's really hard, and it's a practice. You have to continue practicing. And now we're going to fly right into this discussion about branding, about communication, about we're going to get into leadership and fundraising. All these things will come together in the next couple of weeks. Okay. And so today, to set us off on this journey, is Prasha Dutra. And she's a dear friend of mine, a colleague, a partner. I mean, I don't even know how many other words I can use, Prasha, to describe our engagement over the years. One of the earliest people to email me saying, "Oh my goodness, what is this SAI thing?" And it could hear some story, a podcast at that time, be part of it. And I was very intrigued, and that set us off on this wild ride, shall we say, tuning in from as far as Hawaii to conferences, the women, the Wonder Women in Science conference, to all the awesome things that you're doing right now. And I think the topic today is really, really relevant. She's dealt with this question about branding, about really content, thinking about content and articulating your mission out there as you start getting out in the world. And Prasha, just to also mention, she's a trustee at SAI. And I'm going to let her tell you the full story about all the amazing things that she does, because she is a Wonder Woman. Okay. She's indeed a Wonder Woman. So Prasha, welcome.
Thank you, Fenwell. It wouldn't be possible without SAI to be on this platform anyways. I mean, from the episode wasn't even out, right, when we first spoke. So I think I think you were just saying you're a bad cop, but I think you asked the right questions. And if you follow Fenwell's lead, I'm sure you'll be able to find your path, whatever that may be, right? So I think we're big believers on, like, you don't have to copy us or be like anybody, just do what seems right for you and what works. So with personal branding, I know there's a lot of talk around in terms of, like, scientists are not that good at it, and it's harder for us to tell our story, and what's the point, I'm not popular yet. We've had all those things, right? Like, brands are for, like, influencers, and who cares about me, or why does my story matter, is something I hear all the time. And so I have used personal branding as a very beneficial tool, and as a sort of like a North Star, if you will, to help me work on things or say yes to things that I like versus what I don't like, or what I don't want to be a part of. And I think that's what happens a lot of times when we get on these paths. Like, there's so many options, there's so many ideas, and I think you can also use your personal brand to start thinking about, what do I say yes to, what do I say no to, which projects I act on, which projects I don't act on, how do I present myself in situations of and again, I've really personally used it in many places, from advocating for myself at work, to getting promoted, to finding new opportunities, to giving my TEDx, to deciding, do I want this person on my show or not, to, like, showing up today, making sure that everything I say is on brand. It's not so much like about influencers or because I'm better than you or anything like that. Is only because you have so many options and so many ways to tell your story. Why not tell it in a more intentional way, right? So I definitely want to demystify this brand. Like, it's not just about the canvas slides, the colors and stuff. It's basically your way of just telling your story. So let's get started. And today we'll cover two topics. So we'll talk about personal branding, and we'll also talk a little bit about the content strategy, because I know that was another thing that Fenwell had mentioned that can support you guys. And it is also, like, one of those myths, like, how many posts do I need to make? Which platform do I choose? These kind of questions come up all the time. So let's get started. And in this, I will also introduce myself, so don't worry. Awesome. So let's get started, and let's talk about how to of branding and content strategy. And as Finwell said, I'm Prasha. I'm your coach for the next 1 hour. I do a lot of things. And again, to Finwell's point, it's becoming harder to put everything here. Like, I feel like lots of stuff is not here. I am a first-gen Indian immigrant. I moved here 10 years ago. I love Chick-fil-A so much. And even though I don't agree with their policies, I just still love the burger. So that I love Chick-fil-A. I'm a TEDx speaker. I run a podcast called Her STEM Story. I read a lot, and I'm a product development manager in a manufacturing company. And I recently took a role as a global leader for diversity and inclusion for our 30,000 employees, 110 plants. It's a really big opportunity to represent, myself and my cause in rooms that don't have people who look like me or who are of my age. So very exciting stuff. I'm a career and life coach, and I'm obsessed with the Friends TV show, which every person was born in the late 80s and up to like early 90s. So just that's a little bit about myself. Also, I have spent last few years helping being on the board of trustees for SAi, and just a bunch of different things. So you can see me dancing every morning on Instagram, and you can also see me equally serious on LinkedIn. But this is just a snapshot of what a personal brand looks like, right? So not necessarily selling you anything or talking about my idea or business or anything, just telling you who I am, right? So sort of an elevator pitch for this presentation. I have different elevator pitches for different places, but all would be on brand. The big thing here is that your story can be whatever you want it to be, right? So if I want to tell you that I'm a Chick-fil-A lover, that's something I can add. If I don't want to tell you that, that's okay too. But you'll be surprised that with that one line, I've been able to strike conversations in rooms where I had, CEOs and COOs and people that, I can't even talk to. Like, I don't have the vocabulary, but as soon as I say Chick-fil-A, everyone's like, oh my God, I love Chick-fil-A too. So there's this sense of relatability that your story can bring to your brand and to everything that you do. So just to give you a little snapshot, but of course it all didn't start just whatever. Like, it started with a lot of trial and error. And I think with SAI and with everything me and Fen will do in our own ways is to help you not have to go through that, right? So we'll share a little bit of some brand new information today with you and see how this can support you. And hopefully you also feel like, oh my God, I never thought about branding this way. But yeah, so moving on, I think first question to ask is, what's a brand and what are different types of brands? And then we can talk a little bit about what is a personal brand and why do you need one. So I guess for the first question, I would love for you guys to participate. So tell me, what's a brand? What do you think is a brand? What kind of brands come to mind when you think about personal brand or just a brand in general? Anyone can just unmute themselves and go for it. It's a conversation.
I think of brands as the things that people would say about a company or a group or some kind of institutional awareness that may or may not be intentional. There's an element of like the community decides kind of how your brand ends up reading. You might have ideas about how you want to present yourself publicly, but it reads really differently depending on where it appears.
Yes, I love that. So I think there is definitely an institutional type of brand, right? So the company that you represent or your company you're part of. A lot of times we think about organizations when we think about brands. We may not think about different types of brands, right? So there is a whole another, like nowadays, there's something called the ESG brands, right? Like a lot of environmental sustainability and other initiatives that are coming up. And, those people are supporting those causes. So there are a lot of social brands. There's a lot of like industrial brands, a lot of online brands, a lot of clothing brands. So there can be so many different types, but the one we want to focus on, and this is why branding can be difficult, because you're thinking, I don't have a company. What's my brand? I need a company first, or a group first, institution first, or product first, right? Or even products are brands, right? So I don't have it. Let me build the product, then we'll figure out the branding, right? Like that's just how we think, that I don't have anything, so what do I brand? But when we think about personal brand, it's really just how you brand yourself. So that way is when you start building onto, and really, I mean, things will snowball when you're in the right direction. And again, that's why building and thinking about personal branding a little bit ahead of time can really help you set apart from other people. One, because of competition, there's so much competition. Plus, again, if it's snowballing so quickly, how do I make those choices? What do I say yes to? What do I not? So personal brand is just how you conduct yourself in a social setting, if you ask me, right? Like that's just what I think. When I think about personal brand, I think above and beyond economics, right? It's not just the business, it's not just the product, it's just who am I, what do I stand for? So you saw a lot of people getting in trouble last year with the Black Lives Matter movement. So these people didn't even think about those brands. They were not intentional. They didn't think about it that way. That it wasn't an intentional way of doing business. It was just business and me. But I think now we are learning that you can't separate the two, right? You bring yourself to the business, you bring yourself to work. And as soon as you start separating the two, it can become very confusing for yourself. And then you don't know which values to support and which values to not, right? So personal brand is definitely very important because it can combine the two worlds for you. It can help you be more authentic. It can help you be more intentional. And you're right, a lot of times, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what you just mentioned, that it's how people perceive us, right? It's also how people perceive us. So one is what we want to portray, but how people perceive us. And today we'll talk about how do you bridge that gap, right? How do you bridge that gap? And personal branding is one way to do it. So
Prasha, there were two additional comments.
Sure.
So Jackie added consistency in messaging, in aesthetic presentation, and also in tone or content. Naisha also added a brand represents value, style of life, things that someone will relate to.
No, that's perfect for personal branding. That's exactly what it represents. And yes, there's a lot of like this external stuff, but today I invite everybody to look a little bit internally and think about personal branding is really the foundation of your future vision. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? Right? It's very, very important. And it can be used that way because, again, I'm a walking example of it. And I've seen a lot of people do it without even knowing that that's what they're doing. So why not use this tool to our benefit? And the aesthetics can come as we go, but let's start having this conversation with ourselves and our peers, is that, okay, this is the foundation of what I want to build, right? Whether it is sharing stories, opening opportunities, creating projects, talking about STEM, but the way I conduct myself as I go through this transition is going to set this foundation of my future. So coming to personal brand, let's think about what's common between these people. There's so many people on this screen. There's Indra. I don't know if everybody knows Indra Nui, but she used to be the CEO of PepsiCo for longest running CEO, almost 18 years. One of the only women in the top 500, Fortune 500 for that kind of tenure. Of course, I think everyone now knows Priyanka Chopra, Chandler Bing. Sundas is another incredible human being. You should check her out on Instagram. She's a woman. She's a woman in tech, and she works for Google, and she's an amazing advocate for women. But the one thing, what do you think connects all these people, whether they're extremely popular or whether they're just starting out? You can put in the comments, or even unmute yourself. No, nobody? Nothing connects them?
How about they're driven by their mission, right? I'm thinking
That's a good point.
It's one area.
I feel like Jackie's about to say it, but doesn't want to say it. Just say it. It's okay. We're having a chat. No wrong answers here.
Yeah, don't be shy, guys.
I put people on the spot. Passion and persistence. I love that. But let's see. So it's actually their story, right? They all have a story. We know who Mae Jemison is, not because of who she is or what she does. We know because she has this brand, his story that we have heard about so many times. We know who Priyanka Chopra is. We know her story. Even if we just know bits and pieces of it, that's what we connect to, right? Mahatma Gandhi is not Mahatma Gandhi because he was someone special. He was special because of his story. It's his story. Chandler Bing is special because it's his story. His story is what we've heard about. We've watched it on the show. We know who he is. So a lot of the fame that we see in mainstream is connected to storytelling. It's because of the stories that we get attached to people. And then these are the ever so inspiring stories that continuously inspire us, right? So that's how you make your name. It's like your story is what's special, right? There are many Indian women in executive roles across the world, but Indra Nooyi stands out because she did something different. Mahatma Gandhi, there were so many people fighting the British, but Mahatma Gandhi did something different using his experiences and his story. And that's what made him stand apart from other people who were fighting for India's independence, right? So these people have created this niche or this space for themselves, not because they're special, just because they've owned up to their stories. And that's why, your story matters too, right? It's not just these popular people. It's actually the other way. It's their story and they've owned it so well that they're popular now. They have lived by it. They have accepted it. They have worked with it without compromising their authenticity. We can hope for it. We hope that they didn't compromise their authenticity. But from what we can tell, these people are incredible because we know their story. So your story matters too. And why does your story matter? Because this is a question you're all saying. I'm not Mahatma Gandhi, so who cares, right? But Mahatma Gandhi wasn't Mahatma Gandhi all the time. He became that because he owned up to his story. He believed that his story was powerful. He believed that his nonviolence movement was important. It was his values. He needed to act that way to create change. And all of you, whether you do a business or a project or write a grant or do research, what are you doing? Trying to create change, right? Trying to do something different. I hope, right? You're saying somebody's not paying attention to this aspect, so I want to do something here. But now you're doing it very externally. Once you tie it with your story, I promise you're going to create much more lasting impact, right, on the change, and you'll be able to actually create sustainable impact. Because have you heard these people say, oh, I went for the business and then 5 years later I was burnt out, so I just walked away from everything. I didn't like it and it was horrible and it was toxic. And it's not so much because they did something wrong, it's because they got separated from their own story. They started doing things that other people were telling them. They started, saying yes to things they didn't want. They forgot about their values. They forgot about what matters to them. Where do they come from? So then they completely lost way. Right? So your story can really be powerful. That's why it really, really matters. Also, you need to tell your story before someone mistells it. Right? What if I told somebody that, I've seen this person's Instagram and it's just horrible. I say, don't go to their page. And you are not backing yourself up. You're not showing up. You're not saying your story. You're not telling me who you are. So you're leaving it up to me to assume who you are and assume your business and assume your ideas. So your story matters because if you don't tell it, somebody will tell it and it will not be nice. Okay? Or it will not be what you want it to be. Or they will not know the pieces that you really know. So your personal brand is, again, just your personal story. How you wish to tell it is up to you. But the point is, you need to tell it. It's really important. Even in your elevator pitches, do not just go directly to, I'm this person. No, I help these people because I just came to America 10 years ago. Now that is a story. There are many, many women in STEM coaches or coaches in the world, but what separates me is that my story. It's not a competitive advantage. You don't use it like that. It's just who you are. And if you can get closer to yourself, I promise you'll do great work. So everyone agrees with this? The importance of your story? And finally, your story can serve others in very powerful ways that you don't know about. Okay? So this is another reason you should have a personal brand. Is not only because of your personal benefits or I'll make more money or I'll sell this item, but because this will serve others in a way that you don't know yet. If you don't own up to your story, if you don't have the courage, it's not you who's losing in the equation. It's the people who would learn from your story that are losing. Right? So you need to serve them from an authentic place so that they can connect with you and they can say, oh my God, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for saying this because I was thinking about it. Even if one person does it, that's more than enough. This is how I did her STEM story for the longest time. Even if one person listens to it, we did our part. Right? So getting ahead of yourself and building all these things is great. However, if you don't serve anybody, what's the point? And when you serve somebody with your story attached to it, I promise you, it will impact them in much more powerful ways than how it's doing right now. So this concept of personal branding is about connecting yourself with your work, not separating yourself. It's you who's doing all this, right? And if you are not feeling like authentic and owning up to your story or understanding why this matters to you, then I promise you, you will not be able to be in this for the long run. How long have you been doing this, Fanuel? Since
Too
16?
long, too long, yeah, too
16,
long.
right? So
If we go back to the first iteration of this, 2010, don't tell
yeah.
anyone.
So 11 years, right? How are you going to keep up? If he's himself all the time, that's why he can keep up, right? If you are not yourself, then it'll be really hard. Did you have a question, Jackie? I saw your hand. So now let's go to how to find your brand identity, whether it's personal brand or your product brand, whichever way you want to start. These are a few ways you should start, definitely. So first you have to conceptualize it, right? So thinking about what am I going to do? How am I going to present this? Or what is the big concept behind it? For me, it was women in STEM stories. It was mostly women in STEM, creating a community, talking about stories that were not being shared. So I heard a lot of noise around no women, no women, no women, no. It's just constant. Like any article you pick, what does it say? There are only 24% women in STEM, and then they go on explaining the problem, right? And that has always been my frustration. Is that I get it that they're less, but if you don't celebrate the ones that are here, then you're going to lose them too. So that is the concept of everything I do. Is that I want to celebrate the people who are already there. I want to support the people who are already there. And then in that way, maybe one day I'll arrive at a solution, right? And maybe I won't, but at least I will be able to respect the women who've stayed through all the stuff that they had to go through. The second is the visuals, like a lot of people were saying, visualize it. Will I present it in a certain format? So if my brand is audio for the first few years, it was just audio. So maybe it was just audio. And the vision was, we continuously produce the best we can, and that's the vision for the brand for that time. Then you validate, obviously, which your guys are already doing. You validate your ideas, same way you validate your brand too. And in that you can insert your story. So that's pretty much what we're getting to, is when you try to do the brand identity, conceptualizing that why I'm doing this, finding that through line, that storyline, then visualizing, okay, if I'm coming from this place of authenticity, what does this look like? And for me, it was a lot of audio in the beginning, just because I like the public speaking part of things, and I thought I could express myself better. And so thinking about it that way, and then you validate it, you try different things, you improve. I mean, Fenwell didn't have this nice logo all the time. I didn't have this branding all the time. It's over time that it sort of comes to you as you start connecting to yourself. But the identity should, of course, at the core of it, it should be you. What feels like you is what you should do. So a lot of people get stuck with, I have to hire this designer to do all these things. But the designer is not going to do anything. He's going to design, or she's going to design 5 things, and she'll say, pick one. Right? So even then, who's going to pick one? It has to be you. So this is just a very simple way of doing it. But again, if you can sort of hone into your story, you're going to benefit a lot. So let's
So
talk.
Prasha, there's a quick question from Kate. So she asks, is it fair to say that telling your story is different than oversharing or otherwise doing therapy in public? Kate, do you want to elaborate that?
Sorry, I didn't want to, you were on kind of a thread and I didn't want to interrupt, but I guess the way that you had originally described your starting definition of a brand is how do you want to present yourself in public or present yourself socially? And I think that's I guess where I found it maybe potentially intimidating to get vulnerable or talk a lot about my own story. It has more to do with the ugly parts or maybe the parts that don't seem relevant. And so, I mean, we're all people, right? And we're giving, you don't walk up to somebody that you just met at a party and start crying or doing therapy. That's boundary issues, right? So, I mean, there's like a putting your best foot forward component to all of this is kind of like what I would imply. And if you could speak to putting the best foot forward part, I think that's, I would be curious on your thoughts on that.
Sure. No, that's a great point, because I think definitely a lot of people associate their story with like all the bad stuff, which is so weird. But but it's true. It's true. You're not the only one. I think everybody thinks that way, that I have nothing to share. Everything is broken and everything is wrong, or I've never, and that's where I think what you need to think about is, and I didn't include it in this one, but I'm actually giving a talk on storytelling tomorrow, which is more in depth on how to find that story as well. And I can send the link. I mean, if anybody wants to join, and I have a free code as well to it. But it's about, so I've learned this through Fenwell only, but story arc is really, really important. So you're only focusing on the conflict of portion of the story arc, right? So you're only focusing on all things that went wrong. But a good story is not just everything that went wrong. Imagine if you went to a movie and Batman just died 100 times, and then you're like, okay, like this doesn't make any sense, right? So a good story is not the bad parts, but it's the resolution, right? It's the arc. It's actually how do you resolve it. So now move your attention from the conflict to the resolution, and the resolution is your story. It's not the conflict, it's the resolution. And that's not therapy, right? That's not pity party. That's not, this is a self-building exercise. You cannot build a brand, sell a product, raise money, get a promotion, none of that, if you don't even like yourself, and if you don't own those resolutions, right? So I think the resolution part is how you lead, not the conflict part.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's like, I think a much more structured way for me to at least think about it, that there's, you might be a scientist who wants to communicate about STEM stuff. And to that end, you have like a certain persona, or you appear in public in a certain way, but, the messy divorce, or like you're crazy, like that is not relevant to communicating STEM for others. Like that's, and so like the authenticity, I think that people are maybe sold as branding is maybe confusing, but
I hear you. And I think it's harder for scientists anyways, because scientists need a lot of evidence and a lot of convincing that this is how you should work. There's a lot of doubt in scientists are doubting people, which is how your profession anyways. So I don't blame you on it, but I also want you to know that it's not the concept of authenticity that's broken, because if it was broken, then really there will be no celebrities, there'll be no big stories, there'll be no inspiring people in this world. The concept of authenticity is so much deeper in understanding who you are as a person. That's the point. It's not so much what do I say to people. How I conduct myself is how reassured I am about myself, right? And it's not those I own those messy parts, and I'll tell you all about it on Instagram if you follow me. And it's a lot of fun, because not because anybody gives me anything in return, it's just because it starts a conversation, and I hope you want to start that too. Authenticity is not a bad thing if you put in the work to understand what it means for you, right? What does it mean for you is going to take a lot of work on yourself, not on your business, not on your idea, but on yourself. A self-assessment of who am I, what do I stand for? And that's why I give you these 3 options to get started. Freely write your story so far, write it down, like set a timer for 1 hour, 2 hours, just pour it all out. Messy parts, ugly parts, all the parts on a piece of paper, just let it out. You're probably 20 or 30 years old. You probably collected a lot of stuff on the way, have never had a chance to process it. Do it. It's a great therapy. Cry your way through it. Then you can find those parts that you're like, okay, you know what? I didn't like how I write this. I rewrite this. I rewrite this. I rewrite this. The part of the storytelling, which I was telling you in tomorrow's talk, is all about how do you change that narrative. You have a narrative right now which is broken. How do you change that narrative to make it empowering? Because I'm telling you, your messy divorce or your messy this or messy that is actually a great thing, because that is what's going to inspire people. That is what's going to make people think she is just like me. She's exactly as messy as I am. you take my money, whatever you want to do with it. Trust only happens with vulnerability. So you'll have to get a certain sense of vulnerability, but it's up to you which parts of your story you decide to identify, rewrite, right, and present it in a way which is professional and healthy for everybody. But I know what you mean. There are people who, and I, like 2-3 weeks ago, even I broke down on Instagram because I couldn't take it. So it happens all the time to people all the time, but it's about moving on, right? And it's about thinking about, okay, now I want to rewrite this and I just want to share, now I want to share positive stuff. But then you'll find people will be like, oh, you're too positive, I don't like it. So you can't convince people. Like, authenticity is the only way forward, because if you do anything that doesn't feel like you, then, it's just going to be, you'll always have these commentaries around you. But start by writing it, pick the parts that you want to rewrite, find better words to describe your struggles, find better vocabulary to express yourself, focus on the resolution more than just focusing on the conflict, because that makes up for a good story. And I promise you, you can tell your story in rooms that, even if you don't tell it in those rooms, your story can get you in those rooms. That's what I was just telling about, like getting into this new position for me. If I went 3 years ago, they would have said, go away, right? Like, but now, like if I have built something outside, they're able to recognize it, right? And now they're interested. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And it's like, okay, what am I doing right here is nothing but honing in on the values I have and honing in on my personal brand of how I want to do things, and then just doing it. That can open a lot of opportunities that you don't know exist, right? Which includes, I come from India, I Chick-fil-A, I do this, I do that. How is it relevant? No, it's all about making that connection with the person, right? And as you do more of it, you'll find different vocabularies to use it in different platforms. Right? What works with this audience doesn't work with this audience. What I can do on Instagram, I can't do on LinkedIn. What I do on LinkedIn, I can't do on Instagram, right? So there are different rooms, and you're right, we have to follow the decorum and the culture, but that doesn't mean we have to compromise ourselves while doing it. Right? And that's what I mean when I say authenticity. Then you can also ask other people for 3 adjectives that others use to describe you, 3 ways they describe you. What do they call behind your back? That's because we don't have good self-esteem. So many of us don't have good self-esteem. It's very important that we ask others for these questions, especially people who like us. And then also what matters to you. Select 1 cause that's close to your heart and to your story. I remember there was this person in this SAi cohort who wanted to start a podcast on disability in STEM. Great cause, but we couldn't find the story. Why? Why you, why now is the question any investor will ask. Why you, why now is a question your customer will ask too, is like, why is Prasha selling me SciComm? Doesn't make any sense. She's not a scientist. She doesn't do SciComm, right? So that's the connection people are making. That's why I'm saying, if you can connect your cause to your story, an incident, a memory, an interaction, a thought, a book, whatever. If you connect it to that, you will be able to sell your idea better to anybody, not just your customers, right? And that can really help you build that brand, right? And it can really serve as your guiding light, even in the future. And again, what can it do for you is, again, sky's the limit. From your 9 to 5, to your side hustle, to your relationships, your brand can really elevate all areas of your life. Right? It's really very, very powerful. And I know this because I have used it in all situations, and it works. And it works because it helps you become more authentic. And as I told you, it's much more deeper than those pretty colors and logos and outfits and other things. Those are just icing on the cake, right? So think about that. It could be something super magical, and like, we can now move on to the content strategy and how do you strategize content around all this stuff. But are there any questions or any discussions? And thanks, Katie, for that discussion. That was super cool.
So we have a really great question from Naisha. Naisha, I'm going to have you ask this in person. I think it's a really important one.
Yeah, hi. So Prasha, what about the not so nice part of having your personal brand, right? Because you're out there putting yourself out there, and not everyone is going to be, oh yeah, Prasha, she's so great, she's sharing all this information, she's so supportive of all these nice things. Especially with social media, where people just write whatever they want, you get into tough situations and hard comments. So how you deal with that? What you do, or what tips?
Thanks, Nesha, for that question. But I have to be very honest here. I am yet to find my first troll. And it's been a very, very long time. I think the only thing somebody said was, why is your poster so pink? And I was like, whatever, but I think I also choose to ignore it. I think you again, that's the reason why you have to be so anchored in your purpose, in your values, in your story, that nobody can deter you, and that's not your problem. If somebody's nasty, I don't care. Like, really, you just have to be that way, because you have to see the good in world. I mean, there is so much goodness on social media, and I think people don't give credit to social media, 9 to 5. Like, these are really, really great places with really good people. Now, if you choose to look at the bad side of it, then everything's going to look bad and hard and difficult. Right? How are you going to change it is not by sitting on the sidelines. You're going to change it by being a part of it, right? There's so many people in 9 to 5 culture. Oh, 9 to 5 sucks. So people suck here. You're a part of the culture too. What are you doing about it? Right? What are you doing? Nothing. So, and also it takes a long time to get your first trolls. So please do the work. And when the trolls come, there's a wonderful option on all platforms. It's called block. So you go on the profile, you hit block. Go on the profile, do it as many times as you have to, but that's it. And you're done, And if you're doing something right, I hope people disagree with you. I hope there are people who are challenging you. And over time, you'll find, and through your story and through your values, you will find people who will give you good advice, because that's another thing. In your attempt to protect yourself from the bad guys, you're also not showing up for the good people, which are, by the way, way more than the bad people, way more. I mean, Twitter, now I don't go on Twitter because I'm afraid I'll say something stupid. But Twitter is one of the best platforms. I mean, I've met everybody. Like, I've met Fenwell on Twitter. I've started at Hearthstone Story with Twitter. I only started Instagram in 2019. And so I was on Twitter for over 3 years, and it was a really fun time. I met some great people there. But that's what you want to remember. That's what you want to go with, right? And so what? There are bad people in this world. And I mean, this is my attitude on it, Nesha. I'm sorry if that's not a very great answer, but I know what you mean. Again, I invite you to look inwards. What are you most insecure about? Are you insecure about pleasing everybody, which you can never do anyways? Do you know yourself good enough to put yourself out there? Because you are right. It's a lot of work. It comes with a lot of challenges or risks, right? That people will judge me. But that's a negotiation you have to do with yourself. I mean, Fenwell has done a good job, even though Fenwell doesn't do those, in your face kind of content, but he chose to do it his way, right? So that's what I mean. If you find yourself and find your rhythm, you'll find your platform and your people, and it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, I know, Fenwell, you wouldn't do anything else, right?
You're just being yourself, right? Just be yourself, right? I think there are people, everybody has their own strategy, different way of getting themselves out there, but be yourself. I think that's my advice. And yeah. And
then you can call it a personal brand. You do it long enough and then it's yours.
Yep. Exactly. Telling your story, and then you're going to do it in many different ways, connecting to everything that you do, right? How does it all fit together, right? The big, I don't want to say it, logic model, but there is that personal logic model too that is there. And this is part of what we're discussing today, thinking about those stories.
I love that. Can we move on to, I see another comment.
Yeah, that was just me.
That's just
Sorry.
you. Love it. So how to of content strategy. So thinking about like, how do I strategize my content? Now, I think this is super important. A lot of people think about it, but it's all about the more you serve, the more you grow. You got to serve on so many platforms. And it's service. I'll be very honest with you. Me and Fenwell don't do this for money. We don't make a lot of money through this work. We probably, still our 9 to 5s are very, very important to pay our bills. But it's service, right? It's service first, business second. If you don't serve anybody, you can't stay in the market. You can't have the motivation, the stamina to keep going. There's something called in marketing. There's something called marketing stamina. You really need it because it requires so much of your self. You don't contribute yourself like that to science or engineering or technology. Like you go to your lab, you do your work, and hopefully you do a lot of work, but at least where the world I'm in 9 to 5, you don't get to serve people like this. And in marketing and in working on your passion or business or purpose, you serve so much that you have nothing else to serve. And then maybe one day you say, you know what, I'm going to organize a conference and I'm going to charge you money. And then maybe people start writing some checks. But it's a lot of work. You got to serve people. To grow online, it's service, and you got to recognize that, especially in this fields that we are, right? We're not influencers. And they also serve people, by the way. I mean, as canny and as cocky as they look, they are people who are making people feel better, right? So in their own way, they're serving somebody as well. And of course, the growth is very relative. A lot of people think it's numbers, but the growth is, how do you grow your idea? How do you grow your, collaboration? For a long time, we were all just collaborating. Nobody was making any money or selling anything. Then growth became, all right, now we can, maybe sell. So the growth can look different, and it never depends on numbers. I know a coach who has 4,000 followers, but a 7-figure business. So she has $1 million coaching business, only 4,000 followers on Instagram, but everybody buys from her, right? So the growth can look different, but service is what's important. So these are 3 big questions you need to ask yourself before you plan your content. Who do you serve, your ideal audience, which I'm sure through the logic model, you guys are going through it. The second is, how do you serve them? So what is your solution? Whether it's an organization like Fenwell's, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a product or service, whatever that solution is, really getting clear on that. Maybe it's the messaging, because a lot of times people think, oh, my solution is the podcast. No, it's the messaging, and then podcast is just the way you deliver it, right? So that's very, very important. And then why do you serve them? That's your authority. Who are you? Why should they care? And I think I forgot to add one question to it. Where will you play? So one more I will add here is like, where do you serve them? Which platform, right? Whether it's Instagram, social media, or maybe it's emails or blogs or videos, or again, I don't know a lot about everybody's projects, but maybe it's a product, service, whatever it is that you're doing, but which platform, which is for content, it's super important to understand, where do I play and where do I serve these people, which is, interchangeably used. But thinking about this is super important. Who do you serve is where people get stuck a lot. I feel like this ideal client or ideal client avatar, or whatever you guys are using the term to describe this particular person, I think people think I want to serve everybody. In your need to serve everybody, you will serve nobody. So you better pick a lane and then hope that you serve everybody in the, as you go, because you can't serve everybody. Like, you just cannot do it. So if you're going for schools or high schools, so pick the class, pick the grade, 10th grade, only 10th grade, all the girls in 10th grade. That's what I'm going to do. And obviously over time it'll evolve, and hopefully you'll serve the entire high school. But you can't start with, I'll serve the entire high school, and then now you're lost, because everybody learns differently. Everybody has different needs, right? So pick one and as close as you can get. But this is an iteration forever. This person is always changing. They're always 2 steps ahead of you, and you're like, oh, almost had it. And then they change again. And so it's an evolution. And then even your solution is not your product, it's not your services, it's the solution. It's how do you solve it, right? It's not just, oh, my my product solves the problem. No. How did you arrive to the product is how you solve it. And this is all, this is your story. I hope you find ways to connect it. I'll give you a great example. Who do you serve? Ideal audience. And 99% of the time, people are trying to help in service-based businesses. People are trying to help themselves 5 years ago. It's very simple. But they know themselves 5 years ago. That's how they can do it, right? If you don't even have the time or haven't taken the effort to know yourself 5 years ago, it's a moot point. Right? So think about that. Like, what is it, this ideal audience? And how is it connected to your story? Is it you 5 years ago? Is it the problem you had and you want to solve? Is it, but maybe is it, oh, my cousin had it, or my friend had it, and it caused me so much pain that now I'm committed to solve it. But this is what's important. Otherwise, you will not have the marketing stamina. Otherwise, you will burn out. And it's not going to be worth it, because you either be in it, like Fenwell told me day one, either be in it for the long game or don't be in it. Right? Because it's going to kick you out really fast. And which is fine. Maybe you find something else through it. But that's the important part. So connecting these things to your story and why does this matter to you will be very important. How do you serve them? Again, your solution. How did you arrive at it? That's the resolution of that story arc, right? I couldn't get into PhD, so I went through all these iterations, and now I have a framework which will 100% get you in PhD. I'm going to sell it to you. Everybody will buy it, right? So that's how you want to serve your audience through your content. And then why do you serve them as your authority? Same thing. If it's my story, I don't need any awards. It's my story. Why do you get to do it? I was the one who couldn't get into PhD. So who better to serve this or solve this problem than somebody else? Than you, sorry. Who else will serve it, right? So that's the importance. And that's how you sort of start adding your narration to it. And again, where do you play is very, very important. So to get started, you can identify 5 content pillars, and I'll give you a content sheet to help you with it, to plan your content. But any platform you choose 5 content pillars, 5 things you want to talk about. And this is where I think, Katie, I would probably answer your question that you asked earlier, is if those 5 content pillars, one is life or relationships or heartbreak or whatever, then that could be your opportunity to talk about that stuff. If vulnerability is one of those personal branding elements, and then on top of it, it's in certain specific area, then you can use that pillar and create content around it. Right. So that recently on Instagram, I'm doing a lot of dancing. Now, why do I do dancing? Because I used to dance all my life. Why do I do dancing? Oh, it helps me feel very happy and confident. So I shove that in, right? Otherwise, it can seem real off. Like, why is she dancing out of blue? But there's a reason for it. Right. So that's why even all your content should also be very intentional, thought through. 5 content pillars. I only talk about 5 things and I'm done. Finalize your platform. Where will you play? In the beginning, you cannot play on all of them, and it's not beneficial for you to do that either. So pick Twitter, pick Instagram, LinkedIn, maybe create your own blog and promote it on one of these platforms, but pick one for the next 6 to 12 months and don't touch anything else. Just stick to it. I'm telling you, just stick to it. If you can stick to that, you can do the same thing on other platforms, copy paste, but really make your mark. I know somebody who's a LinkedIn top voice in education, and she has no Instagram, but she has 100,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. But that's all she does. She loves it. She does really well at it. She's very good at it. So think about it. Don't try to create, now you can get all the handles. And, I highly recommend like at least securing the handles for your stuff so that in the future you can build on it, but do not try to build all of them at once. You'll fail miserably. It's not going to be fun. Build one, do well, 500 followers, 400 followers, more than enough. just stay consistent. They will build over time. It's like, when you do mutual funds, you don't put money in and try to take it out tomorrow. You're going to get less money than what you put in. You stay in it for 5 years, then it starts paying. A lot of what work that even Fenwell and I have done in our projects is paying now, 4 years later. Right? So that's why it's important that you think about it. Maintain a FAQ sheet for content ideas. So this is mostly frequently asked questions that people are asking you all the time, and you just ignore them because it's your little sister and you're like, I don't care about you. Why are you asking me this? But she looks at you as an expert. That's why she's asking. So maybe you're good at it, right? So those FAQ sheets are super important. Actually, I've built my business on those FAQ sheets because that's how I realized what people asked me all the time. What are the questions they're asking? They're saying, how to be more confident, how to be more confident, how to be more confident. So it's always that same question. Now I can solve that problem through my content, and then even in the future through my service and products and other things, right? So that FAQ sheet is really great. You can put it on your notes app or just on your laptop or your notebook. Just keep writing down, what are people asking? Listen, they're telling you something, right? 4, use Canva. Canva is free. I'm sure you already use it. If not, please just create an account for free. I prepared the deck on Canva. I do everything on Canva, and it's really, really nice. Very easy to work with. With your content, don't get stuck. Evolve. Do something for 4 weeks. Change it again. Just keep the frequency. It's okay to change the theme, the pattern, the colors, especially early on. You're not going to know the right colors. You're not going to know what works for you. It's only with evolution that you'll be able to get there, right? Because it gets boring very fast. So it's good to remember, okay, I'm changing again. I've done so many rebrandings, I can't even keep up anymore. I already have ideas for the next two. but it's like just very important to like not get stuck in, because I see a lot of pages that are constantly just doing the same thing, and then I don't know how it's adding any value. So watching your content, how does it perform, change accordingly, and keep showing up. Again, don't forget to revisit your content goals on a frequent basis. So setting certain goals around, for her STEM story, the way I did it was, we're going to one episode per week for 25 weeks. Not doing anything else. Get to 25, then we'll see what people are saying. What do we need to change? Come to 25. All right, now I want to get another 50. For that, this is the new brand. This is the new logo. This is what we're talking about. Keep going. Then you come back after 25 episodes, say, oh, no, this doesn't look really nice. Let's change this. Oh, let's not talk about this. Let's talk about some social issues. Oh, there's no solo episodes. Let's add those in. That's evolution of content. It's not so much a one-day thing that you sit and know what's going to happen, right? So the 31 guests that I invited to my podcast never showed up because they never replied. They're all my friends. Some of them don't talk to me after that message. I saw it the other day, and that's the last message, November 10th, 2017. Would you be on my show? And no response. And it's been 4 years, no response. That's how much scared they got when I said that. So again, it's content. You plan a little bit. Some things happen your way. Something happens someone else's way. It's totally fine. Keep going. And then be yourself. Everyone else is already taken, right? Who else? There's this book called How to Not Worry and Live Free by Dale Carnegie, or How to Stop Worrying. It's a very cheesy title, but Dale Carnegie is awesome. And he said to imitate is to commit suicide. Right? So when you imitate somebody, you kill yourself in the process. And if you do that, I promise you, you'll burn out. It'll be all done. You'll start another project, and then you'll burn out again. So it's really important to focus on this element. That's how you build long-lasting brands, which are nothing but people at the end of the day and their stories, right? And also, shameless plug, go listen to her STEM story. There are many, many stories to get inspired from, and really think about how people are using their stories to develop their careers. We didn't get to talk a lot about that here, but I will leave you with this caption planning worksheet or content planning worksheet and you can use it anywhere you want, pretty much, mostly designed for Instagram, but you could use it anywhere. But think about, what are the objections of your ideal client? What are the questions they're asking you? What are their mind blocks? What are their desires? And again, any person you're trying to sell your product to is that person, right? They are saying, I don't know anything about science. Right? Okay, so if they don't know anything about science, let's dig deep. What do they not know about science? I don't know what scientists do. All right, if you don't know what scientists do, I'm going to do a weekly job profile. Right? That's how you arrive at that content, because somebody asked that question, not because you want to talk about it. So there's a difference, right? From personal branding to content, I guess the bridge is, this is what I am, this is what I want, this is what someone else's want, and my content's going to sort of bridge that gap between the two without compromising, who I am or what I really want. So you can use that. And then also there's more stuff here that you can just go through it. Of course, this is designed for Instagram and coaching people mostly, but the questions are equally relevant, and you can still create your own content pillars. And if 5 seems a big task, 3 is also a good place to start. But know that whatever you choose, you got to stick to it for at least 6 to 8 weeks to see how you feel about it. Don't give up too fast, then you'll be back to square one. So I'll definitely share this link with Fenwell, and then you can circulate it. And all I ask is just make a copy of it before you start using it. Awesome. What questions do you guys have?
Wonderful. All right. I'm inspired, I always joke about this is like, I just invite these awesome people to these sessions, and I'm learning as much as you guys as well, by the way. Hint, hint. So questions, comments, thoughts?
A lot to take in, but it is a heavy topic, I wouldn't lie.
Prasha, so I know you mentioned and you gave some examples of how your branding has benefited you, but can you go more into detail, share more what's going on in your life thanks to your branding?
Yeah, sure. No, so I think just everything, right? Like all the opportunities, all the connections, talking to you guys. If we thought about branding, she has a good brand, let's have her on for this topic. So a lot of opportunities, just mostly meeting a lot of people doing really, really fun things. And I think another cool thing is I get to give a lot of interviews, which I'm like, I'm not popular or anything. Like, I don't know. So that's like one fun part of having a personal brand is people are curious and want to know more. But yes, bye Amanda. Thanks for, she's always on my Instagram. So thank you. But yeah, so those are things, but I think the promotion that I recently got is probably one of the biggest success stories I can share with you around 3 to 4 years of doing this work and not being, a lot of people are either very secretive about it or don't want to talk about it. But I was very open about it, and I had always created like a good rapport with my employer that, look, I'm doing this, I'm not using your name, and I filled all the paperwork and all those wonderful things. And when this opportunity came, they had nobody else but me to think about, right? So which was really great. And this can actually lead to a chief diversity inclusion officer in 2 to 3 years, which will be phenomenal if I actually decided to go down the HR path and enter C-suite before 35, which will be super nice if I get to do it. So, I mean, just to flaunt a little bit, but also to just show you what's possible. If you just stick to that, I help women understand, believe in their brilliance. That's what I do. And now, whether you want me to go recruit for you, whether you want me to coach, speak to your audience, whatever you want me to do, this is what I do, right? And this is what I spend most of my time on. Okay. So I think that's just one example, but lots of opportunities will open when you start honing in on your story and who you really are. Because again, really nobody can be you. It's just the fact of life. Now, if you don't like yourself, that's a different problem. That's a topic for another day. Like, right? If you don't like yourself, that's a deeper problem that we all have to face.
That is true. And then I put in the TED talk that Prasha gave as well. Just so you guys can check out your own time.
I think it just hit 10K actually.
Oh, it probably did. Yeah.
I was following. Yes. Woo! 1044 this morning is 9,800. So first you give a TED talk, then you have to promote the TED talk, which is like, oh my goodness, so much work.
We're doing our part, Prasha, trying to send it out there. Other questions, thoughts, comments?
A lot to think about. What are you guys most afraid of when it comes to content? Now you know a lot of like secrets to doing it sustainably, but what's that one big thing that comes to mind? Also, what platform comes to mind?
Yeah, I hear there's a double question here for you, Prasha. That's a good question as well. We should address that, the fears part, right? What are you afraid of? And this is connected, like thoughts about setting up a separate social media accounts for your business self versus your personal life.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
I did that for the first few years and then I got exhausted, so I combined them. Also, I have no personal life. This is my personal life, and I think Fenwell will agree too. What for personal life do we have? I don't know. It's 5 p.m. and I have calls till 8, and then we'll do the same thing every day this week. And then the other personal life that I have, I don't want to share about it, which is fine too. But I don't think you should do 2 in the beginning because it's a lot of work. And then again, you're doing the opposite of what I just said. Rope it into your story, rope it into your life. Why does it matter to you? And slowly you will find your way. As far as the handles go, you can always change them later, right? So decide which handle works for you right now. You can always change them later. Get .com domains for your names all the time. I know Brittany says that all the time, but always get your first and last name.com. You should always have it. Like there's no reason not to buy that domain if you are going to be in social spaces, whether you're a scientist or engineer or whatever, you can always post your resume on it, right? Worst case. So I personally think if you're looking at social media, it's much easier to start with one account and promote the content pillars, promote the cause that's close to you. Remember, you serve people, just serve them the best you can, serve those ideal clients every day, every month, every week. Over time, when it becomes a business, we'll think about it. Right? And when it becomes a business and you have somebody to help you build that also, then maybe, but by yourself, you'll be fine. That's what I did on Twitter. It was Hurstum story, lots of people following, changed it to my own name. Life moved on. Nobody cares. That's the best part. Nobody knows us. I love anonymity. You can do anything you want and nobody cares. It's so great. You can dance, sing, cook, whatever you want. You can fail miserably. Really, nobody cares. So that's like a really great way to do it. But what platforms are you guys thinking? That I'm curious.
Yeah. If people want to drop in the chat about platforms, there's quite a few of them, right?
Prasha, thank you so much. I had sort of a niche question off of what you were just saying. I gave a TEDx in my undergraduate, and I sort of didn't have the network then to be promoting it like I would now. And I'm wondering what are some ways that you're promoting it with your recent TEDx?
Yeah, sure. So send me an email and I can definitely share more resources on it. But sending emails to your, like sort of adding it to your signature has definitely helped a little bit. Okay. And then, some targeted campaigns also you can do if you wanted to go that route.
Thank you. Okay, I'll follow up with you.
Yeah. And Prasha's email is on the curriculum doc as well.
Thank you.
STEM advocacy email. Perfect. Yeah, so Naisha answered your question. Prasha, a website is one. So they all have to launch something, all right? So websites, and I've seen some people already have some Twitter. Some people already have some Twitter. So
yeah, probably Twitter. LinkedIn, Instagram is also cool because scientists are getting a lot of eyes on it. But also it just needs a different type of content, and you can always start with just posts and build your way. You don't have to do like reels or videos tomorrow. It's just you can start building up towards it. But a website may not be a great answer, Nesha, because website still needs traffic. So where are you going to promote the website? That's the other part too, because then it'll be you and the website and nobody comes to the website, then you won't be able to serve people, right? So think about, where will I promote the stuff I post on the website? And again, don't worry about, oh, I like this and I like that. It's like, if you're going to sell something to school kids, you're not going to go stand outside a corporate building. You're actually going to take your cart to the school and sell there, right? So same thing, if I have a website about certain topics that are not on Instagram, then I'm not going to serve there. I'm actually going to go to that platform where these people are. So little bit of research on where are these people, because this is what happened to me too. I started heard some story thinking, oh, I'll inspire younger girls to get in STEM, and then I realized they don't listen to podcasts. Like 11th and 12th graders are not like boring or anything. Like, they have life. They don't listen to podcasts like us. So then, how do you then start, okay, fine, I don't think I'm helping them. So who am I helping then? So I'm helping women like me who have long drives to go to work, or coming back and listening to a lot of podcasts, feeling lonely. All right, this is the right platform for that audience. So you have to recognize that. I mean, website is a platform, is a core platform to host everything, but where are you going to promote it, and where does that ideal client live or audience?
Yeah. Any other?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
About the frequency of selling your thing. Like, you're not going to be out there all the time. So like, how that works or how it goes.
You need to be out there all the time. What are you talking about?
Like, it's not, I don't know. I have heard this in other places too. Like, you're not going to be always selling, right? Like,
oh yes,
selling, and then.
No. You're always going to be serving. I think you serve to a point. You don't sell. You serve to a point that people start asking more. And then when they say more is when you launch, when you pay, when you sell. That is a great business. Then you've solved something for somebody, right? Otherwise, it's you. If you're pushing sales, then you have a wrong solution. Either you're in the wrong, again, same thing. Either you're outside a corporate building selling popsicles, or you're outside the school building selling suits. So nobody's buying. What is going on? I need to sell, but it's the wrong place, right? Like for my coaching also, I can't sell it on Twitter. There is no market for it. That's not where people are looking for coaches. It's Instagram where people look for coaches, right? So you got to think about that and serve. You serve, and then maybe one day you get to sell. But you got to serve first. Otherwise, you're not going to get a solution. It's going to be not a good fit for the people who need it. So the rule of thumb is Monday to Thursday you serve, Friday you sell if you want to. If you have something to sell, that's the other part too. Otherwise, just serve. Be in service of people. It will make you very happy.
Can you say more about how you transitioned? Or, I mean, I guess maybe it's two questions. Because at one level you're providing like a free resource, and then you also have kind of like paid content that is, you're drawing a line somewhere between like what's useful to like a general audience in a free capacity, and then like also providing additional value for clients. But then also like, what was that transition like for you when you knew like, okay, now I want to try like delivering a premium service or having like a premium offer where you can sell?
Yeah, I think it was mostly after the Wonder Women in STEM conference that we did the second time around, where there was a lot of, interest in this kind of, specific topics. And that's kind of, I started with a lot of discovery calls. So I spoke to a lot of people as to what they wanted, and then just sort of using that as a basis. So you have to interview people, you have to understand those people, you have to listen a lot. And if that's the right fit, then you sort of move on. I did have a lot of support, right? So as I said, I mean, Fenwell is someone that I would look up to or talk to. Then I also have a personal coach. I also have, mentors at work and outside. So there's a lot of advice that I seek. And there's a difference between seeking a lot of advice and acting on it, right? So you got to not only seek it, but you got to correct course when you do get an advice that don't do this or don't do that. Because a lot of people take a lot of advice which is all great, but how much do you actually apply it? So like, that's very important in that transition. But I was listening to Gary Vee, who's another person on Instagram, like very popular, whatever. But one of the things he said about this topic, because we also think about it a lot as coaches and people who are providing so much content for free, is that, where do we draw the line and how do we charge and where do we not serve anymore, right? Like, how do we serve and convert? But I think the difference is not in the content, it's in the access. So at least as a coach, you don't sell content. That I'm not teaching you anything today that you can't find online, but it's the access, right? So that I sell people access, which is if you're my client, you get 1 hour of uninterrupted time with me, ask me anything, we work together, and then also we get access, you get access to me throughout the day on my chatting or online platforms. You also get access to my network. I can introduce you to a bunch of people. Right. So the access is what's the value proposition for my business, is that access to me and my resources. And that's true for a lot of coaches in general. But it's also a bet on yourself too. I think we don't charge because we have something special to give you. It's just how much do you care about your idea and how much are you ready to put on the table for it? And that's why you see executive coaches charging incredible amounts of money. It's not because they are duping you or, oh my God, like it's a scam industry or whatever. It's only because I could teach you what I did. You want to learn what I did, I could teach it to you. But it's like signing in blood. I can't ask you to give me your blood. So I would ask you for this much money. If it's that important to you, then I can support you because I'm only working with doers. If it's not important to you, never mind, next time, So it took me 3 years to finally invest in coaching for myself too, 3 years actually, because it was too much money and I just could never justify it. It wasn't ever that important. But then came a time where I'm like, I can't. And if I want to do all these things, I need support, I need help. And I don't know this field, right? I don't know how to do coaching. So I need somebody to teach me how to do this as well. So you come to that path in your life at some point. And hopefully you take this one. So many people do it when they're CEOs. Companies also spend a lot of money on executive coaching for executives, like lots of expensive coaches they hire. But I think that's what all coaches will sell you access to them and their knowledge, just having that. I mean, in the past, it used to be a lot of mentorship, right? You had a lot of people who were doing this for free. But at that time, people would leave their house and travel and live with them. And, there's so many stories about Waldo Emerson, but people would come live with him, help him, learn from him. Now we don't have that kind of commitment. So it comes down to, money. And then that's how you exchange value.
Yeah. So with that, I think that's a really great place to bring this to a close. Prasha, thank you so much for that inspirational talk.
I hope it was valuable.
You're very valuable. I think, Prasha, I do look up to you, by the way, too. I know you always say I look up to you. You're an inspiration. You continue to inspire me and on the work that we do. And that's the thing, guys, as you build your own communities, and it's about bringing people together very strongly for me, because that's how you find your energy and you keep going, right? So yes, thank you so much, Prasha. I'll share the links once I get them from Prasha, and so you guys can use those worksheets for your benefit, for your organizations, for yourselves. Couple of logistical things. So Valerie, just to remind you, Valerie will continue to be on Slack, okay? I know a lot of you had questions about surveys and stuff. She'll continue to be there, so definitely continue asking her questions. And I want to close by saying that, to piggyback with Prasha was saying, be of service. Be of service, be of service. This is where you start, you give, right? And you serve others, serve on their issue, on whatever challenges they're having. That's why in the logic model workbook, we ask you, like, what's your solution? What are you trying to do? And for whom? You can push that and say where, and then when, right? You can really go down that question, and it helps you get clarity in terms of what you're trying to do. And I hope you're seeing the connections, right? The problem solution stuff we worked on at the beginning, it shows up right here. It will show up again in leadership, I guarantee you, when Joanne talks about it in a week or two. Brittany next week, same thing, right? The same concept. And then finally, when we talk about numbers and funding in my lecture, I guarantee you those will be the same point, right? It's connected to this thing, because you get that right, the rest of it is easier to build on top. So with that, thank you. Have a great week. And the video for this will be shared shortly.
Thank you so much for having me. Please don't hesitate to reach out or send me an email. Always happy to chat.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.